Hi there. Okay, it's Saturday, June 23rd. And here's where we're at on this thing, on this Heinz 57 project. Front suspension is mocked up, it's pretty much bolted together. The brakes are ordered and supposedly on their way. And until I get the brakes, which include the spindle. I mean, not the spindle, the rotor and the hub. I can't put the wheels on this because that's how all of that goes together. The old hubs don't work on these drop spindles. And in order to put the sway bar, the directions we're seeing says you should have the car roughly at ride height. So in order to do that, I think I want to put it on the ground and either simulate some weight on it or put some rods up there in the springs and compress the springs, whatever, 2 or 3 inches to simulate again ride height. And then that will help us to locate the sway bar where it mounts on the frame and obviously where it mounts on the control arms. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the brake parts to get here, what I've started doing is the pre-assembly that's required. I bought one of these rain gear wiper assemblies that replaces the original windshield wiper system that comes with these cars. You see here on the dashboard, on the firewall. That hole you're looking at right there is where the windshield wiper motor used to sit. You remember the classic Chevys have this kind of big ugly motor, electric motor sitting right here. And then inside there's a drum and a cable system that operates the wipers. And these didn't work, they were broken. And they don't work that well, not to mention that motor on the firewall is kind of ugly. So I thought, okay, I bought this kit for my son to use on his car, and he's nowhere near ready for it. The kit's already, I don't know, 2 to 3 years old. So we figure let's use it here and we'll just replace it when it's time for him to do his. So that's what I'm doing. I'm in the interim while I'm waiting for my brake parts to show up. I thought would be a good time to get under the dash, since the dash has also been all hollowed out. All the heater assembly, the what do you call the heat ducts that go up to the windshield? Defrost ducts and all that stuff are all gone from under there. The cluster is no big deal to take that out. That's 4 sheet metal screws and 2 3/8 nuts, and the cluster is easy to remove, so I can work through that opening. The dashboard glove box it's covered now for painting, so I don't get the dashboard full of overspray, priming overspray and stuff. But the glove box has been removed, so all I got to do is cut the visqueen that's there, the masking that's there, and I can work through that hole. So now's the time to be doing that. The under dash is completely empty. All the wiring's gone. So when you read the directions, they tell you to pre-assemble this much of this. And what that does is, like where these carriage bolts are, the back pieces that have the square holes for the carriage bolts, they've intentionally slightly undersized them. So when you put the bolt on and tighten it, it pulls the square on the backside of the carriage into that square hole and it locates it there. It's there. You don't have to hold it there. It's going to hold itself there. So once you put that together, those bolts, those carriage bolts, when you remove the nuts, the carriage bolts are going to stay there. So you're working under the dash. You don't need 3 hands. You don't need one hand to hold the thing, one hand to hold the bolt, and another hand to put the nuts on. It's going to stay there. And the same thing, wherever they've used a carriage bolt, here's another location like that. And there's another one on this side right here. This one here, they've already located. That one was fixed in there when it came on this motor assembly. So anyway, they tell you to pre-assemble that much and then take quite a bit of it apart and install it in the car. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm following the directions, And so far, it looks like a pretty nice piece. I'll let you know as I go if I still agree with that. Okay, all for now. Bye.
Okay, so here's all the little bullshit in plain English. That makes this stuff take so long. We're here to mount the sway bar. And it's literally a bitch to figure out where to put it. Because the bar is unwieldy. It's bent in all these different directions. You can't hold it anywhere. Hard to support it even temporarily. So we come to find out it's got to get mounted in a place where it looks like someone hooked a chain or a cable. I got to get out of this noise. It looks like someone hooked a chain or a cable, a tow driver or something to the frame with a hook and yanked on it so that it stretched the bottom piece of the frame, the bottom of the C channel. It stretched it. And there's one on each side, and it's like you can't hardly bend them back. They're stretched so much. So we're fixing that. We ended up making a cut through the center of the bubble that was there, and bending it back. We had to cut it twice. That's how stretched it was. And then now we welded it back together and grinded it off here. So again, those are the little diversions that happen. It makes all of this take forever. You know, we've been working on this today. We got the suspension compressed so that we can simulate ride height, which you're supposed to do when you mount this sway bar. And that took a while to accomplish that too. And now we found this problem with the bottom frame rail. And so here we go. Maybe now we can finally get this thing in position and drill some holes and mount it. More later. Okay, well, this is what it all looks like. How many? 4 or 5 hours later?
Something like that.
2 of us?
It's time for booze.
And this is with a kit. Okay, it's time for booze. But it is mounted. We got the suspension compressed. You see the amount of space we got up. These were touching when we started. And put the bump stop in. You can see there's actually that much travel left in the suspension right where it's sitting right now. So it's kind of, I think, between, you can see how this kind of corresponds with this. So it's going to come down as much as it's going to go up. And there's where it's mounted. The sway bar is mounted. It's mounted here on the frame. And we did the little repair back here. So that's that operation. I think we talked about it. I think what we're going to do when we let the spring stretch again is take the links loose, because you see that's going to go down a bunch. That's going to stretch the shit out of that, it seems like. Out of the connection point there, out of this point right here.
Link.
The link. When that suspension all goes down, it's going to, the shaft is going to pivot. But that link seems like it's going to get stretched.
The arm is going to get short.
Right. In its arc, it's going to shorten, right. So anyway, we're there for now. We're being paged upstairs. Later. Bye. Okay. We're doing our first test. This is how this thing works. Can you see in there? It's on intermittent right now. So temporarily, see, I put the battery from the other hot rod project, the Model A in here. This is a brand new battery. This is where I had gotten on the other one was I made the battery box, and I bought a battery that fit the box and got it on a charger, or one of those triple charger things. So right now I just have a couple of tie wraps on there to simulate the wipers. Okay, so let's turn it up so that it goes constant. It sounds pretty nice. I thought it was going to be noisy, but it's not. Oh, that's high speed. Can you see? So it's got 2 speeds. I guess, and intermittent. And the intermittent seems to be variable. So let's see, it's not very loud. Pretty happy with that. Pain in the ass to install it. I mean, it took me, well, I would say probably if I stayed with it, you know, on one continuously, probably about a day. Because it's kind of, and the dashboard is completely hollow. There's nothing under there. No gauges, no radio, no defrost ducts, nothing. No heater. But like I said, it's pretty, not intricate. What's the word I'm looking for? You got to be pretty accurate with everything. Precise, I guess, is what I'm looking for. These little escutcheon things here don't fit very well on the windshield. That's not something this manufacturer, I mean, that's the way Chevy built the car. They don't fit that well. There's no gaskets. They use some kind of body putty or something. The factory does, I'm told. And the little trim around the windows isn't exactly centered on the openings where those escutcheons go. It all complicates things. Yeah, that's pretty nice. The obviously the tie wraps, this one's more like where the wiper's going to actually work. The other one, I didn't get it facing the right direction, and I couldn't move it. But like I said, I'm happy with that. So we're done as far as the wiper thing. I mean, I got to wire it permanently. I have it temporarily wired right now because I didn't make the wires the right length and bundle them and all that stuff. I just temporarily hooked them up. I'm happy with that though. Like I said, it's good. See ya. Thanks for watching. Let's see if I can show you what this looks like in operation. I can maybe show you up underneath the dashboard. That's what the assembly looks like when it's mounted under the dash. It's really hard to light that area there. Like I said, it's a pretty nice, pretty well engineered and nicely thought out kit. I can see how those directions would be tough to write. They do a pretty good job. Some of it isn't that clear. You got to read into it a little bit, but it's not, all in all, like I said, as difficult as it is. I'm sure it is to write it. See, here's up underneath. I'll turn it on. Maybe that'll help. Oh, you're gonna have to wait. I'll come back with it turned on. There you go. This is the passenger side, the right-hand side. You see there's a bar that's stationary up in there that ties the two spindles together. And then the other one, obviously going back and forth, is what operates the arm. See how close it goes to those speakers? That's the only thing I don't like. I wish they would have accounted for that. But I have a feeling, like I said, there's no defroster ducts in here. I think the space between those two bars is necessary for the defroster ductwork. So they probably can't go too much further away from those speakers. And then all the way over here, see if I can point the thing over there, is where the motor is. The blue you're seeing up there is masking tape. You're looking through the duct for the opening for the defroster. You're seeing the tape that I got up there. There's the other one right there. And like I said, there's the arm on the passenger side, the spindle on the passenger side. So like I said, I'm pretty happy with that. It's like I said, pretty well designed kit. It's not junky. It's pretty substantial. It isn't thin or light or anything. You can see it's all pretty quiet. You see the things bolted together here. They make that for two different applications. The 57 Chevy is the wide application, and the earlier Chevys you narrow that down The same with the upper bar. But anyway, that's how it works. Later.